Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin, and I am and have been located in beautiful North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie Orlina. I am a transformational life coach and I'm in San Diego, California.
So today we have a very special episode for everyone. We have some news that is probably going to surprise people and spark some feelings amongst those of you who we are so grateful to for being our regular viewers and listeners over the last few years. My heart is pretty heavy today, but I'm going to power through. So, Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you to announce the shocking and surprising news that we have to share with everyone.
So today will be co-creation station with Collin and Stephanie's last episode. Um yeah, I agree, Collin, my heart is heavy. And so I made the decision on February 26th on a Monday that I would not be making an 8th season. I've kind of been feeling it coming on a little bit towards the end of last year. Kind of came up, a few weeks ago, and I was in duality about my decision and had a lot of feelings about it. And my chiropractor, Dr. Chris, who we've had on the podcast, I think in our first season when we were doing having interview guests up here, she's amazing and does energy work on me. And so I said, can you muscle test me on something? I said, I'm just going to ask myself quietly, like in my mind. And so I asked quietly, is it in my highest good to do an 8th season of Co-Creation Station? And she said, my body said no. And it's like, okay, I was so afraid to tell Collin. Like, I was not looking forward to that conversation at all. I was so
which,
nervous.
which sadly, I validated all your fears.
I was like, fuck, I don't want to do this. Like,
Oh,
so
I'm
that
so
was
sorry.
so that was a Monday, right? And I'm like fretting over it. I'm like, when do I tell him? Blah, blah, blah. Because we literally at that point we had 20 episodes of season 7 in the can. We had 2 more if we did to 22. We could have done to 24. And then the next day, Tuesday morning, I wake up, I take Nibbles for the walk, and I often listen to Abraham when I'm, in the morning at some point. And I start my walk and I'm like, oh my God, Steph, what's best for you is best for those around you. And I was like, oh my God, this is best for Collin too. And I was so excited. And I'm like, I'm going to call him right now and tell him.
You should have led with that. You should have
I did.
started.
I
No. You
did.
should have said, like the very first sentence should have been, Collin, I have the best thing for you.
Oh, shit. Yeah. I wasn't in that great a space. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was in a really good space. And so I'm like, I'm going to call him right now. And so I'm on the walk with
Well,
Nibbles.
I should say I was in a good space at the beginning of the call.
You really were. You were. And so I said, I don't remember how I opened, but I tell him, I said, I'm not going to be. And he's like, you're kidding, right? You're joking. And I'm like,
This is a bad thing too, because it was a bad coincidence that neither of us could control, that you and I've had a thing outside the podcast of I've been trying to teach you sarcasm and how to mess with people, because that doesn't come natural to you, and it's
not at
like
all.
basically like I was brought up with nothing but that.
Yeah.
And so like I literally did think like the best way you could mess with me was to call up and pretend that you were ending the podcast.
And I have to say, to be completely honest here, I have gotten really good. Like I've actually
You
pulled a
have,
few.
yeah.
And so in the
I'm
3 years, have we been doing this 3 years? In the 3 years that we've been doing the podcast, I've gotten so much better. Like in the last six
You have,
months,
yes.
I've done,
That's
and
true.
you're like, and I'm stone faced and I'll say something and he's like,
Yeah.
however, you told me something in friend time. It was just prior to me making my decision, and you said you have this new friend and she's even more sarcastic than you. And
Yes.
you're like, so I'm gonna have to up my game. And I literally went into fear mode, going, oh fuck no. Like there's no way. Like you're going to be any more sarcastic. Like I'm just barely like, and I'm like, I was like, so there was a little bit of that was playing into it as well. But anyways, when my body, unbeknownst to me, why, unbeknownst to both of us, why, right? Like I just, and so, um, we love you. I love you all. We're so thankful. We've had an amazing time. I guess so there we're gonna go
I
into our
obviously love them more than you, but
whatever. Whatever. Okay, so where do we go from here? So we're gonna do our episode. Is that enough in the intro that you wanted me to do? Am I complete?
well, yeah. Sorry, I just dropped a pipe.
And I want to say there was this feeling because so then the very next day, so that was I made my decision on Monday, told him inspired on Tuesday. He once he realized I wasn't joking, he's like, okay, I need to end this call right now, and I'll call you when I can talk.
Well, thank you
And
for portraying
and you
much more nicely than I actually.
and you like said goodbye and hung up. And I was like, oh shit. I'm like, oh. But then I've been wanting to tell you all this because when we started this podcast, I was like, I'm not a very open person. Like I'm very private, mostly. And
Hell, do tell Stephanie. You don't say.
and
In your
Bafangu.
in your defense, you're a Libra, which I didn't know for
And
you.
and I will say, like in these 3 years, I've become more open. You know,
Yeah.
I've shared a lot of things on here I never thought I would. And so on Wednesday, my mom transitioned. And I didn't we didn't know it was going to be that soon. I got the blessing of being there with her. And so on Thursday, I just remember Thursday or Friday, I just remember thinking like, I want to talk to my friend. Like I knew you were mad at
It's
me,
like
but
the
at the
worst
same time, I'm like, I want to
timing.
tell my friend what happened. So that was really hard. And then on Friday, y'all, I go to pay my rent on the first, and my landlady says she gives me 60 days notice where she's gonna have some remodeling done. And
Oh, I didn't
so I didn't tell you that. Oh, I thought I told you that when we were, no, I
know.
guess we just talked about my mom.
A lot of things that you're sort of springing on me last minute, last few weeks.
Whatever. No, because all we talked about when we did talk, when you were ready to talk, then that's when I shared with you about my mom, and then we just talked about
By
that.
the way,
So,
I have been, I right after the phone call, I, started, of course, making a list of all the reasons why this was a gigantic mistake you were making. Um, reasons on there, which I think it's good to bring up, is that you have had, I mean, I think I and our viewers and listeners have gotten to witness a really cool journey, which is you feeling, I think anybody, even though we're not, we don't have a million people watching, listening to us, but anytime you put yourself out there in the public, it's always a question of like, how much am I going to reveal in this public forum, and how much privacy am I going to keep? And I think everybody that does anything like this has to navigate some sort of journey about that. But I think that what I and our viewers and listeners have witnessed, if those of the people that have stuck with us from the beginning, is that you've been on a really cool journey that we've gotten to watch, where you trust us more and you share more and you open up more. And every time you did that, not only did I notice it, I also noticed that it's nothing against what you were doing before that, or saying before that, but it's one of those things of like, the more personal you can get, the more real, authentic, and personal you can get with other people, the more helpful it is, because I think we all are trying to, as we say, navigate this crazy confounding thing we call life. And the most helpful thing is someone we can relate to that's going through the same things we're going through, or something similar. It doesn't have to be the same specific thing. And I think that's very much to your credit that you've gotten more and more comfortable sharing more stuff, and you had the courage to go on that journey through this podcast. So yeah, wasn't the number one reason why you're making a terrible mistake, but it was top three.
You need to talk to my body and my higher power and my inner being and infinite spirit about that. I think they would beg to differ with you, Collin, but I know you think you're God, so it's okay. I know you think you're everybody else's higher power because you know best. That didn't land very
Yeah,
well,
well,
did
the only thing I wanted to say, in addition to
Hmm.
sharing that your reasons for stepping away, is there was the possibility, I suppose, of the podcast in name, continuing possibly with me alone or me with someone else. I mean, that would be something obviously I would have had to discuss with you because I feel like we built it together.
Mhm.
Um, but right from the beginning, as soon as I realized that you weren't messing with me on that phone call, I mean,
Hmm.
it actually never kind of entered my mind of doing it by myself or doing it with other people. And I know there may be some viewers and listeners that have listened to us or watched us for a long time who might be sort of surprised to hear that or disappointed, but it just really did feel like this has been, I mean, we've talked about it many times. I mean, we never intended to have a podcast, like
It was so higher powered.
came about because we were just on Zoom every other or every Sunday or every other Sunday, just catching up as
We
friends.
were every Sunday
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I guess I just wanted to say that is like there was a brief moment where my brain said, well, but it was immediately answered pretty clearly, which I'm so grateful for. There's so many things in life that seem unclear for a long time until you get the clarity. And that one, I felt like I got clarity right away. I was like, no, if
Mm.
Stephanie's out, that's the end of this podcast. And if either of us decide to do something like this or similar in the future, it will have another name and it will be something else. Because this was a unique and special thing that you and I did together.
I agree. Thank you. I'm glad that you have come to that decision. I was uncertain about that as well, what you would decide. And I just trusted like we would have a conversation and, move forward with
I think
whatever.
two on my list actually is like I'm awesome and
Yes. Yes, I
definitely
agree.
awesome,
And
and we're losing that, and that's why it's a giant mistake for you to lose. I'm not letting that joke go, by the way.
that's okay. Go for it. What else did I want to say? Oh, and it's not ending because the content will always be there. And I had this thing this morning where it was like this intuitive hit, and I'm like, I listened to episodes over and over again of my favorite ones of Abraham's at their workshops and I feel like our listeners can do the same. I don't know if everyone's listened
Yeah.
from the very beginning or have listened, so it's always it's going to be up, it's going to stay up,
The thing I was
it'll be
thinking
available.
too is like there's it would be different. It would still be a good thing, like if you and I gave live talks that weren't recorded every Sunday, and helped people. Like that would still be a good thing. But it is a little different the way that we did what we did. You're absolutely right, and it's occurred to me. Um, there's no way of knowing exactly how the YouTube algorithm works, and from the beginning, have tried to let go of worrying about it too much because it's behind a it's behind a black wall and nobody really knows how it works. But it does seem lately that YouTube has been responding to criticism that they over prioritize, um, videos that already have a bunch of views. And I'm a loyal YouTube watcher, for better or for worse, and I've noticed that the algorithm seems to be going out of its way to put suggest videos to me that don't have a lot of views, and so I think that
Mm.
that's happening. So I think you're right. I think we did something really great, and I think, not to blow our own horn, but
Blow away, Colin.
that's another element of, I think, courage it takes for anyone to do anything like this, because you put it on the internet and it is kind of forever. I don't know if it'll be forever, but it's
Yeah.
going to be a long time that people will be
Yes.
stuff, and it could potentially pop up in people's feeds and stuff like that. So I'm glad that we had the courage to do that, and I think you're right. I think it has the potential. I do have one. I don't have many regrets at all, but I do have one regret, which is that um, I didn't feel like I had time but I would have liked to create some YouTube shorts out of our best moments of our
Mm,
best discussions, because there's definitely been a trend in the last couple of years with TikTok being so huge and Instagram Reels being so huge and YouTube Shorts getting so huge
mhm.
that a lot of people are getting a lot of attention for their regular longer videos by having,
The
shorts,
short
and people
snippets.
can see it in their shorts feed and then they go, "Oh, I'd like to see the longer version of that."
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
super glad though that we did long versions. I'm glad that we had, 20 to 45-minute discussions every episode, because I feel like there's definitely this trend in technology overall of like short attention spans and whatever. And I think this stuff is, at least for me, it's going to be, I'm involved in a lifelong process of reprogramming my mind from
Me
the way I'm
too.
raised to think to the way things actually work, and aligning my thinking with that. And
And not even just the way we're raised, not even just the way we're raised, but a way the majority of people think.
yeah,
Because when we interact with them, we're also being hit by all of that programming. Now, we don't even just have the programming in our head, but then
yeah,
so many people don't think and live this way. And so I'm having to deal with that as well.
yeah. So I did make a list of, I just really quickly this morning, it wasn't any great research effort, but I did go through all 7 seasons, just looking at the titles of the episodes and like the little thumbnail on YouTube. And because I wanted to see what was the most popular episode from each season, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Um, and I also, in the course of that, I found a few that I really liked, even though they weren't the most popular one of that season. So, um, and I wonder if you can guess. Maybe you can guess. Um, season 1. What was our most popular?
Dude, I have no idea.
Oh,
Like,
I
like, like it was so cool because Kelly would be like, great episode. And we'd both
know.
chime in like, what did we talk about? Like,
I know. Kelly would always text us, and thank you, Kelly, for doing this. It was awesome.
Yes.
Always text. Well, the thing is, Sarah would always have a comment on the YouTube video,
Thank you, Sarah.
and then Kelly would text us and say,
And Jacqueline.
that was a great episode, and we would always respond in the group text with Kelly like, "Oh, thanks. What the heck was it about?" Because we don't remember.
Exactly.
But season 1, the most popular episode, I wrote down 2 here because we had 2 with a lot of views. The most popular one by far was the one with our friend Alice, who talked about the Alexander technique and how to align, how important aligning your physical body is in overall health. And we talked about how that sort of lines up with aligning your purpose, your thoughts, your beliefs, all that, in order to enjoy more of what you want in life. But also, our first episode ever was pretty close behind that with a lot of views.
I know I liked the title of that one.
Yeah. Season 2 was, and I got to say these. I mean, not that I had anything invested, but I'm surprised at most of these. Like, I wouldn't have picked them. Season 2 was the episode with your friend Julie Zenforlin.
Oh, Zanforline. Uh-huh. Yeah, she's amazing. If anybody wants some energy work.
Yeah,
Oof.
she zoomed in from, I'm forgetting
Chile.
what's that? Chile. Yeah.
Chile. Mhm.
Season 3 was episode 1. Your friend Dana Griffin, fellow life coach.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
yeah,
Yay, Dana.
yeah. Season 4 was episode 7, Make Money Fun. Which, if we were really smart, that should have been the title of the podcast.
Yes.
Season 5 was episode 9, which this is one of the ones that really like made me chuckle, because the title of this one was "Why Are You Messing Up Your Own Coffee Order?" Which is my story about how I have fear thoughts about Starbucks messing up my coffee order when I
That's
go to Starbucks,
right. Oh my
and
God,
so
that's
they
so
do
funny.
every time I go.
And I want to give you props because you were definitely the lead on the titles so often. I just love your and appreciate your creativity and
Those
so
things that, yeah, I think, I mean, I first of all, I love naming things. So when I started doing that, I was psyched. But then when I realized I had to come up with a a name every single week. That I definitely got. And I think everybody who makes YouTube videos probably struggles with that. It's just sort of like, because you know that the title, is going to affect the algorithm and how much, and all that stuff. And so it's hard to try to find something that is true to what you think the episode was about, but also has something that's an invitation to people. We never went full clickbait, like
Yeah.
one horrible truth behind the law of attraction.
Although I have to say, because probably over a year and a half ago or longer, I kind of took over doing the titling and the post,
Thank
uploading and
you.
posting.
Yes, I don't know
You're
if,
very welcome.
like, because I was doing all the behind the scenes stuff
Everything.
for the first 3 seasons or so, and then I
Yeah.
told you, like, I was getting overwhelmed, and you volunteered to take over almost all of that. So thank you so much for doing that for
You're
me.
welcome. And thanks for the beginning. But then it was cool because then I would start to, when I watched videos, I would start to notice the titles and being like,
Yeah.
that had nothing to do with what I was listening to. And then of late I'd be like, oh yeah, I see what they're doing. They're trying to capture my attention. So,
Yeah.
and I would not have known that had I not had the experience of, uploading and titling and,
No,
trying to engage our listeners
I get
or
highly,
others.
and I probably spend more time than is necessary. I report a lot of videos on YouTube because one of the things you can report videos for is a misleading subject line.
Hmm.
I've watched so many videos where it's like there's this really captivating subject line, and the video actually does not contain anything about it. And it's just sort of like, so I actually have
Yeah.
been a little bit of a online Karen, just reporting reporting people. Like that's, I mean, there's always this thing of like you want to persuade people. You have to, people have millions of videos they can choose from, so you want something that's inviting. But when people go full until just lying just to get a click, I can't abide by that. Season 6 last season was episode 7. And the title, I think this was one of the longest titles we ever had, which just amazes me that it's the most popular one. You just don't have to worry about how.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that one, that title, and so good.
And then this season, also super long title, episode 10, life changing ways to accomplish your goals and dreams.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. You asked me because you had texted me and said, well, this is my favorite. What's your favorite? I want to talk about it. And then I'm like, dude, I don't have a favorite. And then I'm like,
I bet
well,
you do. I bet I can remind you of your favorite episode.
I, my most, because I never really went back and listened to them, especially at the beginning, because I was very I didn't want to be more self-conscious than I was.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have it interfere with me just being me. However, later in the seasons, I started to. And then my most recent favorite, I do have a favorite, which
Oh,
is season 7, episode 11. And because I talked about my experience at the spa resort, which was a real spiritual experience, and then talked about, David and from Marriott, who now lives in Hemet, and just that whole like relationship thing. And just the way that I love that episode. I'll listen to it and I just feel it gives me hope and knowing like it's going to happen. And so I've listened to that. So I've put a lot of views on that one.
I don't. It's funny because I've listened to a few over the years here and there, but I typically don't listen to them, and I think it's probably because of mostly your thing is like I don't want to get stuck in analysis while we're creating an episode of like, oh, when I said that thing I should have said it this way.
Yeah, I
But
didn't
it's
want
still
any of
remarkable
that.
because I really love to hear what I have to say, so it's kind of funny that I
I
don't.
know, huh? Huh, that's interesting.
Anyway, I thought you were going to say your favorite episode was going to be season 2 episode 6.
Why?
Was the episode where our mutual friend Evan joined us to talk about
Oh,
guitar.
that was so good.
The
I
title,
love that story. Oh, Evan. And I love that I was a part of it
yeah,
and that I helped him manifest what he truly wanted. And then he had an experience that far was beyond his wildest wishes.
yeah.
Like that whole evening was, he said, was like the
Wasn't
best thing
always the
ever.
case, but there were every now and then we would have episodes that were kind of centered around a really great story. Like the coffee one for me was like kind of a negative. It's like this is how to attract what you don't want really well. But every now and
Which
then
we're all good at, right? We're all really good at that in some
I'm really
subject.
at Starbucks. Um, season I three my favorites. I had three favorites that were all from season two for some reason. One of them was the one with Evan. Another one was two episodes later, season two, episode 8, which is Why Did the Ducks Stop Here? Which was my sister
Oh, Kelly.
talk about this neighbor that
That was so great.
hates ducks and they congregate around her
Oh my
house.
God.
And
And
she's
she sent us photos privately. That was great
yeah,
of the ducks on the woman's house. Or
just,
was it on her dock? On the dock.
I mean, for me, because, yeah, I was on the dock. Yeah, because it's not a neighbor of my sister's house. It was a neighbor of our mutual aunt's house on a lake.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Oh God, that was funny.
the house was, yeah, hating. I mean,
Law of attraction, right? You focus on something, whether you want it or not, you're gonna get it.
well,
It's
that's right.
inevitable.
They're. I mean, not that I thought about that this much, but I mean, I think maybe in the very beginning, I was thinking like, especially, sorry, excuse me, but actually I don't think it was in the beginning. I think it was more like in because we had guests pretty regularly for the first three seasons, and then our loyal listener viewer Jacqueline, I was talking to her one time, and she said she really loved the guest episodes, but for her, they were interruptions in what she was really loving about the podcast, which is you and me talking about the law of attraction. Because she was saying like you and I, like she needs to reprogram her brain. And when the episode popped up every Monday morning, it was like, oh, good, this is how I'm gonna like retrain my brain for
And I
Monday.
thought it was Kelly too that had mentioned that she really didn't like the the when we had guests.
I don't
Didn't
know.
Kelly say
I'm
something?
sure I'll hear
Okay.
about it either way.
No, I thought she told you. I think, and then I heard about it. But
I just
maybe,
remember the conversation with Jacqueline because I was surprised because I thought, because the usually what would happen, and this is not surprising, but when we would have, I mean, as I mentioned, like the most popular episodes in season 1, 2, and 3 were all when we had guests, and I think
right.
part of that is that person has friends, family, followers, and stuff,
Exactly. Yeah.
check out the episode, which is what happened.
Yep.
So I was thinking, I think for a while I was thinking, oh, we need to have more guests. We need to have a guest every other week and make sure
I
we.
do remember you saying that, and I'm like, no.
And yeah, I really like the fact that Jacqueline said that because she was able to see and verbalize something that I think I did feel, but I was just sort of afraid to really embrace. So, and then the final one that I really liked from season 2 was episode 17, which again my sister Kelly was. But when we had Kelly on, and we had Angelica
This
on.
is a great dynamics between Kelly, you and I.
Well, because
Loved having her on.
yeah, and because the thing with Kelly and Evan and Angelica was it was a little bit of a different guest experience because we stayed focused on the law of attraction. A lot of our guests, a lot of our other guests in season 1 and 2, there's definitely a connection, but we were interviewing and having discussions with different health practitioners and things like that.
Because we wanted to support our
Yeah,
listeners and like letting them know the various tools and
yeah,
techniques and
and it's all
things available to them for their mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
yeah, yeah, and it's all connected. So, yeah, there was the episode. The title of it was this is season 2, episode 17. Stay out of the universe's control room.
Yeah.
Something that I came up with on the spot. And
Mhm.
again, not to toot my own horn, but it's just like so. One thing is stories like the ducks and the Starbucks coffee help me remember how the law of attraction is always operating, how to work with it, all that sort of stuff. But also like if we can come up with metaphors that help us visualize. And that one that I came up with on the fly was really helpful for me because, and I remember doing the graphic for it afterwards because I had to find a picture of like a control room and then put like do not enter tape in front of it. You can see it on the YouTube thumbnail for that episode. And it was really like, yeah, like how silly is it in terms of getting involved in how we will manifest things, like the literal way they will appear, and trying to figure that out, predict it, control it, make it happen, etc. Where you have like the most complicated control room in the universe, and the universe is running it perfectly, and you want to break down the door and be like, no, no, get out of the chair.
I
I'm,
know what I'm doing. No,
I,
I don't. I don't have all the information.
I
How
don't
the
know
F
what
can
any
I
of
know
these
what I'm
levers,
doing?
buttons, or switches do, but I'm
Yeah,
doing a great job running this.
yeah, exactly. Well, and I thank you for sharing that because that is where I'm reprogramming my thinking and beliefs is, and I've said this multiple times here on our podcast about the how,
Yeah,
and the gentleman that talks about the dreaded hows.
yeah.
And I notice that's softening.
Hmm.
And then what I'm realizing more and more and I'm practicing is oh, it's already done. I said this a couple episodes ago, like, oh, my next place already is. I just don't know. Like my inner being knows, my universal manager, who is the law of attraction, knows, my higher power, God knows. I just don't have that information yet. So like the whole faith is knowing and acting as if.
Yeah.
And Florence Scovel Shinn, who, you and I and Kelly love and many other people, and she talks about digging ditches, like preparing
Mm.
for what you've asking for, like that act of faith. And so that's what I'm currently doing now is I'm going to go buy some chimes that I love to put on the porch of my next new place that Nibs and I, it's our new place. Like he and I live there. Um, and so, and
I really love that image too, because when I hear about that or read it from Florence Scovel Shinn about the digging ditches to prepare, um, my sister Kelly and I, our dad, had a garden, a really big garden, vegetable garden, when we were little kids, and I remember very specifically, like it was laid out in a grid. It was
yep.
rows, and he would have to like use a rototiller to like fertilize the dirt, and then he would have to use fertilizer, and he would sprinkle it down the row, and then when it was time to plant, he would sprinkle the seeds down the row, and so just interesting to me because Abraham talks about filling in the grid, and when Florence Scovel Shinn says digging ditch, that's how I put it all together. Of like, oh yeah, you're preparing and you're planting the seed and you're watering it, but you don't have any part in like getting under the soil every day and making it grow. Like you don't have any.
Right. And we wouldn't even think to do that when we drop that kernel of corn in the soil. We just expect it to like eventually pop up a little green
Yeah,
leafy plant that's corn, and then eventually over time the stalk gets bigger and bigger, and then the little corn starts to sprout. Because my grandparents, I remember being out in the yard with them. They had 3/4 of an acre, and we did the same thing. We had corn, and I don't remember what else, but and so it's like I think when you were saying like, tilling it and then putting the fertilizer in, I'm thinking, oh, that's the thoughts.
mm-hmm.
Oh, the beliefs. Oh, the acting as if. Oh, that's where it comes in, the metaphor of, planting the garden and expecting.
Yeah. I did want to say one other thing that occurred to me, which is there was always a question in my mind. I don't know if it was in anyone else's mind, but in my mind of will I ever get up on a Sunday morning, shower, shave, and put on nice clothes before the podcast so that I look really decent and presentable. And now we know the answer is no. I will never do that because this is the last episode, and these are the clothes I wore yesterday, and I'm wearing. That was
Oh
one
my God.
thing that was very disturbing to me going back to
You're so funny.
thumbnails because we used to have for the first three, excuse me, for the first three seasons.
I loved when you did that, and I'm so sad when you stopped
Yeah,
because it was so wonderful. And I know it was time consuming,
your
but
sadness.
I love, love, love when you did the thumbnails.
Now, I really like doing them, but it's one of those things. I think as I grow older, I'm realizing like even things that are good or fun, like I'm really conscious of like the time and effort,
Yeah, yeah,
mental energy required, and
sure.
finding just the right graphic and putting it all together was just like way too much time. It's one of
Yeah.
those things that I think once you see it online, you're like, oh, that probably took 3 seconds, and the reality is like, no, I spent a half a fucking day on that thing. Like that
That's where I would listen.
to 8 p.m.
when I first took over doing the titles, you would send me the recordings and then I would listen to them and try to come up with a title.
Yeah.
And then, a year later, I'm like, as the episode's ending and you click and I'm like, okay, so what do you think about that title? Like, what do you,
Let's
because
get
I was like, and so I can't even remember well, I did recently go back to one and had to listen for one because neither one of us could come up for the title at the end of the episode. But I was like, oh, heck no, I'm not gonna.
yeah.
And that's when I would listen. Yeah, I would go back and listen, but
Yeah.
so many good things. So, Collin, dude, I love you so much. And I have to say, to be completely honest, I feel like for me anyways, like our podcast kind of started to come in front of our friendship.
Hmm.
And so when we had our conversation last week on the phone, I felt like, oh, I got my friend back.
Mm.
And so that being said, I look forward to us having our friendship like be like our core center now.
Yeah.
Um, as well as, dude, I learned so much. Like I'm not the same woman that I was when we first started, and
Mm.
I would not have done this had you not said, um, we should do a podcast. And I remember it's the second time in our friendship where my eyes got like big, like a, deer in the headlights. But because I
Most,
had done some spiritual work beforehand, I was able to say yes and then continue for 3 years. Um,
most of the really
and
cool stuff you've done in your life, I've been directly involved. Not a coincidence.
oh God,
And
you
I'm
are
really honored.
effing hilarious.
I'm really honored and flattered that you feel that way about our friendship. It's very sad for me to hear that though, because our friendship is over after today. Like for this, uh, I was
Oh,
raised.
I'm so relieved because I was really lying.
I was raised in a country where forgiveness is not really,
Oh,
and
oh, that's just so funny.
I don't really have it. So for the last few moments. No,
uh,
no, I feel really the same, and I mean, I guess I didn't experience that. I didn't feel like it was. I was gonna make a joke there about like, oh yeah, we were having artistic differences. They were gonna get worse, and but I didn't feel that way. But if you did, then I guess that's another good reason to call it quits now. But yeah, I'm super grateful to you for because it's very easy and many people do say no to those sorts of things. When I said, hey, we should just do a podcast, I forget that when I'm ready to do something, that doesn't mean that the other person is ready, And I don't just mean mentally, I mean spiritually and whatever. And it takes a lot of courage to say yes to those things. So I really appreciate you for that. And for me, it felt effortless almost all the time. But in terms of doing the actual podcast, some of the work around it was not effortless. But
and Sunday morning, like
but
like my vision
yeah,
is to on Sunday mornings, because Lou and I used to do this, Sunday mornings, we'd get up and
shout out to Lou who got ditched over the course of this podcast.
we would go for a bike ride on the boardwalk, and then we'd have breakfast at Kono's, or we always did something in the Sunday morning, as a couple. And so that is my vision as well. And I remember thinking, how am I gonna, I'm like, well, we're gonna have to switch days or times because I want to have that. Hopefully my guy likes to do that too, and we'll have our morning routine. And so that was just funny. So
But really want to say a special thanks, and it's whatever I do, it's inadequate. But to um, all of our listeners and viewers, because I know there's just from looking at the data, there are people who listen to us and watch us every week and have for a while who we don't know. Um,
thank you.
but I also want to give a really, really special thank you to my sister Kelly, who's been not only a guest,
Thank you, Kelly.
loyal viewer, listener, supporter, great feedback, all that sort of stuff. Angelica, who also guested once, but has been
Thank you, Angelica.
a supporter and given us lots of great feedback on how to improve the podcast. Jacqueline
Thank you, Jacqueline.
has been really great, and Teresa in Connecticut, who's also been a huge, huge supporter. So those folks.
And Sarah.
Oh
Thank you,
my God,
Sarah. Sarah.
I hate myself right now. Sarah should be well, it's not a competition, but Sarah, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I mean, Sarah literally commented on I think every single YouTube episode from like season 3 or 4 forward, maybe even before that, and would just let us know that she appreciated it and always had like a funny little, you know, observation that I had probably already forgotten from that episode. So thank you, Sarah, as well. You are
Thank you, Sarah.
the best. And super.
Thank you all. Thank you everyone who has ever listened. Like Janet started listening recently. Ruby started listening recently. Thank you all. Like, you know, Crystal and Sam, like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone who listens regularly, people we don't know, we appreciate you being here.
And if you have your own
And
list of why this is a giant mistake that Stephanie is making, feel free to go on the YouTube version. I can put some of mine on there, and we can have a.
And we also, I welcome you sharing with us what you received from it, because I know a lot of our regular listeners and the people who Collin just named would tell us like what they get from it. And I thank you when you've done that. It's been awesome. And if you'd like to tell us, you know, what you received from it, and you can tell us your feelings too about why you're sad. I get it. I totally do, and I welcome that. And I know and I trust that as we all move forward, that we will find exactly what we're needing and wanting, and that this is a time for expansion for us and to receive and appreciate and experience other things that are going to uplift us and support us and move us forward and onward. And I have my own sadness about it too. And I'm also honoring my journey and all of ours, because I need to say this right out loud. I have this vision. There's going to come a time when Collin's going to come to me and go, "Thank you so much for leaving, because now something wonderful is
I,
going to come from this."
I,
And
I,
I trust that's going to happen.
I completely think you
And
are.
you're going to be so happy that I did this.
I think you're spot on. It is not today.
I
Oh,
know it's not, and I honor that too. I know it's not, and it won't be, but who knows? You're probably an awesome manifester, so we don't know when.
that's true.
It could be right around the corner, but I trust that it is for both of our highest good and for everyone's highest good.
Well, the
Because
other
it's
thing too is like that I did want to say is there's a tendency I think sometimes for when you do something for a long time and then you stop to over focus on the fact that it's not going to continue. And I think the fact that, I mean, I remember us finishing season 1 of 22 episodes, which it was our decision how many episodes were going to be in a season. But
yeah,
I
that
remember
was fun to think about that as well.
I remember finishing season 1 and going, "Holy cow, we did 22 episodes. That's nuts." You know? And then season 2 it was like, "Oh my god, we did another 22 episodes. That's crazy." And then at one point it's like, "Oh my god, we've been doing this for a year. Oh my god." So I mean, the fact that we did it for 7 seasons is a
I
testament.
know.
Our viewers, our listeners, you and me putting in the time and the effort,
Mhm.
but also like really like how I feel like the podcast itself is a really great demonstration of how the law of attraction works and how to practice the art of allowing, because this this never felt heavy to me. This always
Yeah.
felt like there were I'm not gonna lie, there were definitely Sunday mornings where I woke up and I'm like, oh, especially the last couple.
Shit, me Saturday night, I'm like, fuck, I gotta get up tomorrow. And
Saturday night. But yeah, but the moment we start, when we press record, it's just always just joy. It's just
yeah.
joy for the next, 20.
And multiple people have said to me, there is this chemistry between you two that it just seems seamless. Like it's just not even like it's
Number one,
efforting at all.
number one reason that Stephanie's making a huge mistake. You hit it.
And so, yeah, yeah. And
Well,
yes to all of the above.
I can say I agree with that assessment, but it's also a special joy to experience it, to be in it, not be listening to it, but to be in it. Because I think,
Yeah,
uh,
we've always had that. I was flashing too because I had a energy healing on Thursday afternoon, which was amazing. I needed it. And And this is the second time an energy healer has said to me, you need to ground. And I was like, and and so I was like, okay, what park am I going to go to and just stand on some grass? And I thought of the in Old Town and that park. I think it's called Heritage Park, where they have all those like homes from the 1800s, and where we had that experience of when you had written with Girl with a Silent Scream, Girl
Yeah,
with a Silent,
that
which
was
one?
the sad love song thing. Jeez, that's terrible. I can't think of it.
Yeah. So when you had
I
just
think
written that song,
Human.
oh, Only Human. When you had just written Only Human and you came down to San Diego and we went to that park and you played it acoustically and I had my Bose speaker
Mm-hmm.
and so we played it and those five little girls came running over
Yeah.
and they just sat on the grass and was listening. And then I'm like, come up on stage. And they came up on stage because there was like a little platform there, stage, and they danced with me while I think you were playing the recording, actually. I think what had happened was you had
Yeah, I
played the acoustic one time and
Frank
then you
Corey
came
and
down another time
yeah,
and then played the recording.
my friend Corey and I made a little recording where he played piano,
Yeah,
I played acoustic guitar and sang it, and we were playing that recording on your Bose. Yeah.
dude, that experience was so amazing.
Yeah.
So we just have and then the Old Town Cafe where we got our picture taken, and then come to find out you and I our photo from the
So we were trying
was
to wrap
it
this up, and it sounds like now you're gonna do your favorite episodes.
what how many minutes are we in?
We're at 50, about 48 minutes right now.
Are we really? Okay, so we went over. Well, we love you so much. We were going to do like a 45-minute episode and we've already crept over that. So we love you all. We'll miss you being here and I'm going to enjoy sleeping in on Sunday mornings, but I will think of you often for sure.
We are so happy that you've joined us for 7 seasons. Again, as we mentioned, this is the final episode, so there will not be another brand new episode for you anymore on Monday mornings, but we were happy to do that for you for quite a while. Thank you so much to all of you, not just for listening and watching, but also the people that did something on their platform for us to help other people find out about it. We really appreciate that. Um, we wish you a happy and abundant life. And we thank you for joining us on the podcast Co Creation Station. Bye, everybody.
Bye.